The iconic American wild stallion. They've been romanticized in car commercials, bank commercials, even in feature cartoons. So what happens when you take that Hollywood icon and place it in the real world? Well, the picture isn't pretty. To put it simply, wild horses are eating themselves out of house and home. So why is this happening? Well, it's because much of the policy that now manages wild horses in burrows is based on emotion and misinformation. So let's consider a few facts about wild horses. Fact number 1, wild horses are not really wild. They are feral. They were domesticated livestock that came to the Americas in the 15th century and escaped from the Spaniards, hence the name Spanish Barb. Fact number 2, wild horses in burrows are not a native species to North America, as many advocates would have you believe. Now, while it's true that the horse evolved over a period of 65 million years on the North American continent, the prehistoric ancestor to the horse, named Equus, died out about 10,000 BC, around the time of the Great Ice Age, save a band of them that migrated to Asia to evolve into modern horses, zebras, and donkeys. It is also important to note that all of their known predators, like saber-toothed cats, American lions, and the giant dire wolf, who were much larger than their modern counterparts, also died out about the same time. So the environment that naturally managed herd size is gone. In fact, only one prehistoric predator remains on this continent, man, who in his current form does not hunt them for food. Fact number 3, while they are protected under federal law, wild horses are not threatened or endangered. In fact, the opposite is true. Wild horse populations are currently at 3 times the appropriate management level, the AML, as set by the federal government. That is because herd populations on the range are naturally doubling every 4 years. Fact number 4, if you take all other users off of public land, like ranchers, miners, wildlife, and the likes, horses will still overrun and destroy the range. Now, advocates claim that all the horses need is more space to find balance at the expense of ranchers, miners, and wildlife managers, who, by the way, are constantly improving the range they occupy. So let's think about that. If horse populations double every 4 years, and there are now 73,000 of them out there on the rangelands that can only sustain 27,000 of them, by the year 2033, there will be 1.7 million of them. By the turn of the next century, that number will be 76.5 million. So all the public land in the western United States could not support that number of horses. Fact number 5, birth control is only marginally effective in its current form. Horses have to be gathered, treated, and turned back on the range at a cost of about $2,600 per mare. Now, to be effective, more than half of the mares have to be gathered each time, and the process has to be repeated every 2 years. Now, if the BLM seldom gets the number in a gather each time that they are seeking, and with a price tag of $5 million every 2 years, how practical is that? Fact number 6, gathering horses and putting them out to pasture on private land is bankrupting the Bureau of Land Management. In recent years, the only option Congress has made available to manage the number of horses on the range has been adoption. However, because adoptions, even during their best times, could not keep up with herd growth, the BLM has been forced to place many of them in private pastures at a current rate of $20,000 per horse per lifetime. The rest are housed in temporary holding pens at a cost of $50,000 per horse. Now, based on that calculation, our current obligation for those that are in holding and those that are still on the range is $1.7 billion. And that doesn't count for the new growth in herd population. The BLM is currently spending 2/3 of its entire horse and burro budget just to keep horses in pastures. As a result, they don't have enough money to gather the excess horses that are still out there on the range. Fact number 7. Horses in pastures still end up getting euthanized. So we end up spending $1.7 billion making a wild, free-running horse live in a pasture bounded by fences or in a holding pen and still end up putting them down when they get old or sick. Fact number 8. The original Horse and Burro Act of 1971 gave the land managers a full toolbox to humanely manage the herds of wild horses and burros. Now, back then they recognized that the herd populations would grow without natural predators, and they would eventually overrun everything. So they implemented a fair adoption policy for adoptable horses, and for those that were unadoptable, for the outright sale of horses for purposes other than for pets and riding. Federal wild horse and burro management started with a rational policy that has since been stripped away in the fervor of horse worship. And that is manifest in our iconic treatment of the wild horse. If you saw one starving or dying of thirst on the range because there was nothing to eat or drink, he wouldn't seem so iconic. The public needs to take off their romantic 3D animated cartoon movie glasses and take a real look at horses on the range and demand a return to a more humane and sensible policy. To find out more about the wild horse epidemic, please go to www.wildhorserange.org.